Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Leno and committee members. My name is Lizette Navarrete, and I'm here on behalf of the CEOs and trustees of the California Community Colleges. First of all, we'd like to thank Governor Brown and the Department of Finance for presenting a comprehensive approach to workforce development. Specifically with regards to adult education, we appreciate a proposal that really embraces and builds upon the local collaboration of the AB 86 regional consortia. The League, however, would like to continue to stress the importance of local decision-making through a sustainable and efficient method that provides balance and gives community colleges an equal voice. We also support a one-year transition that really emphasizes collaborative service delivery. As we move forward, we really hope that there is a real look at filling the gaps in each of the regions. And lastly, we hope that as you review this proposal, that there is an additional consideration of an investment into a data infrastructure so that we can improve coordination. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, Chris Walker on behalf of the California Association of Sheet Metal Air Conditioning Contractors and the California Automotive Business Coalition, here to speak up on behalf of employers and their interest in the career technical education programs of the state. First of all, we'd like to thank the governor and the Department of Finance for their proposal with regards to the career technical education in high schools. That is a huge piece, huge recognition of some of the issues that have come up with the LCFF and school priorities at the local level. It is clear that career technical education, due to, I think, a cultural issue, we heard it earlier, Senator Hancock mentioned a cultural issue, has de-emphasized the importance of career technical education and moved towards other academic curriculum as the primary goal. We would like to see a day when career technical education comes back as a part of the normal education system in high school for most kids. Senator Mitchell left, but she asked why there was no teachers coming out of our higher ed system. I used to represent the California Industrial and Technology Education Association. These were teachers that were career technical industrial tech teachers, engineering, aerospace, you name it. They all came through the CSU system and were credentialed as single subject credential teachers. The reason we don't have them anymore is a cultural issue. Our UC and CSU systems began to increase the filtering for admissions. It used to be A to D. It's now A to G. And on top of the A to G, you have to have extracurriculars to rise above your competition. There is no time left in the day for kids to take career technical education in school without being disadvantaged. And unfortunately, as a culture, we believe that college is superior, that anything else is a plan B. And that's part of the problem, is we don't look at plan A and plan A. We look at plan A and plan B. I look forward to the future, and I want to thank the governor for his proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Good afternoon. I'm Rona Sheriff, and I'm representing the California EDGE Coalition. We're a coalition of business, labor, social justice, education, and workforce organizations, an unusual coalition, but what we agree about is the importance of middle skill jobs, the kinds of jobs that require some sort of post-secondary education short of a four-year degree that results in good wages, results in competitive economies. So I'm here to say, one, we're thrilled with the legislature and the governor's attention to this issue. We've been long involved in issues around basic skills, around career tech ed and career pathways, and around accountability. We agree with some of the points that the legislature, the LAO. We agree with some points LAO made about avoiding fragmentation, ensuring that we have accountability, using consistent performance measures. Some of the themes we heard here today that I'd just like to reemphasize is it's important to have the curriculum alignment between K-12 and the community colleges, an important element of these programs. That data alignment is essential if you're going to have any kind of accountability and know what we're producing out of this system. And finally, that all of these programs, we heard about a number of them today. There are tons of other grant programs, foundation-funded activities that are happening in our communities. And some way we need to think about how to rationalize the regional way we're doing outreach to employers, and that we're collecting information, and that we're working together. So that's a real important issue, and that we need to pay attention to as we look at these programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sheriff.
Thank you, Chairman Leno and members. Having Tristan Brown with the California School Employees Association, I had the opportunity to review several of the consortium reports through the AB 86 work group process. And the thing that sticks out the most might be the inconsistency in the depth of cooperation and participation of stakeholders in adult education. And so I'd like to echo your comments, and as well as Senator Roth, about the participation for the future of this program in more stakeholders, students, faculty, staff, everyone that has a part on the actual delivery of the program, to make sure that, like we've seen in other elements in public education policy, the more collaboration, the better the byproducts that come out for this righteous program. So we will be visiting and highlighting some ideas on how to increase participation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
And we are very happy with the level of funding, I should say. Thank you.
Thanks.
Estelle Lemieux with the California Teachers Association, and I'm going to comment on something a little bit broader. CTA, is an organization that represents not only preschool, but all the way to community colleges. So we certainly support the planning, the coordinating, the collaborating, the streamlining. All of that is necessary, we believe, to provide the best needs of the local communities. However, having said that, our biggest concern would be the funding portion of it. Bringing in entities and planning with them that are not part of the Proposition 98 pot could be problematic. As you know, schools have taken, after the 2008 economic downturn, the biggest brunt of cuts. And we are in the process of finally getting some of that restoration back with the governor's promise and the voters of the state voting for Proposition 30. Our concern would be that when you sit, you should separate the funding from the planning and the coordinating and the collaborating. Because some of these dollars are Proposition 98 dollars, and when you start mixing the funding, it gets to be a very slippery slope with non-98 funding. And that can grow, and we have history of that. I can remember first coming to the Capitol in '95, testifying in Sub 1 about museums being in the Prop 98 pot, and we had to pay for those out of our, and while they have educational purposes, really, we fought hard to finally get them removed because they weren't part of the daily classroom activities. We believe that if you separate the funding, keep the funding, we believe that the LEA should get their funding directly, as community college should. And if in their planning and coordinating and collaborating want to expand whatever side, whether it's 98 or non-98, let them contract out with each other. And that way, we believe that would keep things, because once you start including things in the Prop 98 pot, you have to take something away from a K-12 program to pay for another program that will be growing. And we have a lot of pressure in the education community this year because it appears in the overall budget that we are getting our restoration, and we are the brunt of the general fund dollars. And with that, there's that tension of childcare wanting into the Prop 98. We have the workforce labor investment. Not saying that, but everybody's hurting for more funds, and that's the problem. It's a limited pot of money. So we would caution just this issue. We call it encroachment. And with that, though, everything else, oversight, accountability,
Ms. Mew?
We support thoroughly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members, Jeff Frost, representing the California Association of Suburban School Districts. I was just going to say something nice about Senator Roth when he leaves.
He's like that.
Related to career technical education, I wanted to reiterate the comments that he made regarding having the pathway grants a local match for, in essence, a competitive grant. We think that's a significant problem. We in fact would like these not to be competitive grants. We think this should be a per ADA allocation. That way, everybody gets the benefit of the money. Everyone has the same problem related to not having enough money for career programs. So that's something we hope the committee will look at. In terms of adult education, we share the comments that that LA Unified made in terms of the 7-member panel. We really think that this is Prop 98 money that should be determined by school districts and community colleges with the input of the other components that the governor references. There is also a component that has the executive director of the state board sign off on everything. And I think that's fairly precedent setting as well that the committee might want to look at. The last thing I'll say is I've seen the data that Ms. Jones provides. It's quite compelling. Some years ago, I know that there were more than 5 million Californians between the ages of 18 and 40 that did not have high school diplomas. We really need to do something about that if we're going to have people in the workforce ready to go. So thank the committee for their work.
Great, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair and members, Erin Evans-Sputum. I have a couple of comments related to the career technical education discussion. First, on behalf of the California Association of Regional Occupational Centers and Programs, as well as many of the county offices of education that we represent, including Santa Barbara and Napa, Santa Cruz, Butte, and San Bernardino, among others, we are very appreciative of the governor's recognition of the importance of career technical education, as well as his proposal to appropriate significant funds in the budget towards CTE. We're also very appreciative of the committee's discussion that you've had today. Further, we look forward to working with the committee and its subcommittees to ensure that the budget adequately funds those high-quality CTE programs that are already being maintained by county offices, districts, and JPAs, as well as to ensure that CTE services are provided throughout the state. Second, on behalf of the Small School Districts Association, and in response to a comment committee member Roth made, the Small School Districts Association is very interested in engaging the idea of not allowing competitive grant funding to be part of the match. And we think that deserves some more thought. For example, in Sonoma County as well as in San Diego County, both of those counties are made up of more than 42 school districts. More than 40 districts each. And the overwhelming majority of those districts are small. So we'd like to continue that discussion, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans.
Good afternoon, Chair, members. Christina Brown, speaking on behalf of the California Workforce Association. We represent the 49 local workforce investment boards around the state. Our membership also includes representatives from K through 12, higher education, labor, industry, and community-based nonprofits. The mission of the California Workforce Association is to prepare workers with 21st century skills through academic and vocational training, match skilled workers with California industries, collaborate with economic development, education, industry, labor to develop workforce strategies around the state, and invest workforce funding based on trends in the labor market and the needs of California businesses. We would just like to offer ourselves as a resource to the committee as you continue to work on this important issue, and I appreciate you holding this hearing today. Thank you.
Thanks for the offer, Ms. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jeremy Smith here on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council. I'd first like to thank the governor and the Department of Finance for their hard work on their CTE incentive grant model. We think it's an excellent way to move forward for these critical and scarce CTE dollars. As Senator Roth said, what gets measured gets done. We've been saying that for several years. Acknowledging the pressures that school districts are under to fund all sorts of things, it's data has shown that CTE is the first thing to go. And we need to make sure that if a district wants the money, they can apply for it, but they have to put some of their own money in, and they have to report back to the state how they're using that money. As I said, those dollars are scarce. Now, I'll also just add a couple more things. First of all, I'm very happy to hear a lot of what my colleagues and I in the Get Real Coalition have been saying for several years, said today. One of the things that wasn't said today was that college is not for everybody. Everybody does not have to go to college to have a career and a middle-class livelihood. And maybe we need to change the definition of what college is, because right now college is getting trained for a career, getting a degree. Well, that's what an apprenticeship program gives you, with no college, and, by the way, free of charge. So creating a pipeline beginning in high school of CTE graduates, quote-unquote graduates, or kids that spend time in a CTE course in high school, will give them the opportunity to graduate college and move into a state-approved apprenticeship program or some other career training model. And they don't have to go to college to have a career. The members of my unions have great careers, and their apprenticeship programs actually take them to community colleges. Their in-class training makes them spend time on a community college campus. So you get a little bit of that college if you join something like that, and you need a taste of that future in high school to know that you don't have to go to college, rack up a ton of student debt, get out of college, and not know what to do. And I'll just finish with this. The average age of apprentices in our programs is 27 or 28. So you've got kids graduating high school and meandering through their 20s, maybe going to college, maybe not, but not knowing where to go because they didn't have a chance to work with their hands in high school and to join an apprenticeship program after high school. So we're thankful for the governor's plan. We look forward to supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Christina DeCaro, along with Mike Dillon, we're the lobbyists for the California Library Association, and we're here to thank the governor and the Department of Finance for recognizing the role of public libraries when they crafted the adult education trailer budget language that was just recently released. We spent a lot of time during the fall with Mr. Osmena from the Department of Finance and his colleagues, and they wanted to know about the literacy services we're providing. One of the most unique services we're providing is for the really low literate learners, those that are 0 to grade 5. And as we prepare them, and then they are sufficiently accomplished enough to enter a 5th grade program at the K-12 or the community college level. And what we're hearing is there's about 4 million of these really low literate learners out there that we're attending to, but we've got about 4,000 people on a wait list right now that we're trying to serve. And what we were really just asking for during our discussions with Department of Finance was for some acknowledgement of the role that public libraries play in this service. And thankfully, the trailer bill language does acknowledge the good work that we do. I would just mention, we are not interested in any Prop 98 monies. We would be interested in a contracting out model, of course. We are funded through non-98 dollars, and we might be back before you arguing for some more literacy dollars in the non-98 camp. But we'd just like to thank the governor's office. We'd like to continue working with you and Mr. Block and the subcommittee in the weeks to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Caro.
Craig Brown for the Correctional Education Division of the Hacienda La Puente Unified School District. We're one of the biggest providers of correctional education in the state. Interestingly, that program is lumped in to this proposal. It has never been mentioned today. It is very different. I'll just give you a couple quick reasons. One is it's paid in arrears, so the money you appropriate in the next budget will pay for services being delivered today. 2, it is not aligned with regions, with community colleges geographically. It's aligned with sheriff's departments. So it doesn't even fit in the geographic scheme that you're working on. And probably the most important reason why this program probably needs separate attention is that when you did Flex, this was one of 3 or 4 programs you kept out of Flex because you knew it would disappear. Since that time, you've done realignment. Realignment has given the locals more responsibility for rehabilitation. If you're not careful with this proposal, you would jeopardize the sheriff's ability to deliver K-12 adult education in their jails. For those reasons, we are working with the administration trying to come up with an acceptable role. But again, in our view, this program probably should be treated different than the rest of it, or you will jeopardize realignment.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. I'm Liz Guillen with Public Advocates. I'm testifying today on behalf of low-income students, English learners, students of color, who I believe will be at great risk if we do not continue our focus on the accountability for the use of funding around career tech education. And I just want to reinforce some of the questions and concerns that the members of the committee have already raised. There are means to measure the career tech ed programs in some way. The local control accountability plans actually require that districts include in their plans under the pupil achievement priority the percentage of students completing college preparatory courses or career tech ed sequences or programs that are aligned with our standards. Now, the standards alignment is a requirement in the in the CTE proposals, but as Senator Block says, if they're not tested, that alignment is not really measured. So I encourage us to stay focused on ensuring that the programs that receive these funds are of high quality so that the CTE courses are aligned and contain both academic foundation standards as well as the career standards, and that they are integrated so that students can get support in academic work and counseling and other services that they need to succeed in that academic aspect. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Guillen.
Thank you for your patience. It's always good to be the most appreciated speaker, which is the last one, so we'll try to make this quick. Jim Ashwan and I represent the California Agricultural Teachers Association, and just a couple quick comments. First of all, thank the panel obviously for their patience, but also the governor for his leadership on the career tech funding piece. And I want to specifically talk about the idea of an incentive grant, because I'm here to tell you it's a model that works. In the mid-'80s, after we saw the turmoil of changing graduation requirements and a whole bunch of things that impacted enrollment in ag education, stood at about 23,000 students. In a time that has seen constant decline in most areas, our enrollment has gone up to over 80,000 students. Now, I want to provide a context for that. 42% of our courses are A through G approved. 76% of our program completers go on to post-secondary education, and 52% of them are Hispanic. That's our enrollment profile. This model of an incentive grant will work, because the more you delve into it, you begin to understand it's asking districts to do what industry and other partners have asked them to do. And that is, are we doing what's needed for all kids? Are we doing it in a way that makes sense? And are we willing to do what it takes? Local control funding formula is in its purest form under this governor's proposal, because in essence, he's saying, if you want to do career tech right, step up and be held accountable for doing it in a way that makes you collaborate. If you don't, that's okay. Don't apply. The incentive grant model will drive districts, I believe, to come to the table in a way that they have in the ag area. It's a mandatory part of the communication network that you have to do in order to get funded. And so as we hear about the collaboration, I can tell you it's real. It's just beginning in some areas. It's something we're used to because it's been part and parcel of the ag incentive program criteria for a long time. And just finally, I'd like to comment that I thought there were some excellent questions today about the teacher pipeline. That will remain as a challenge. We have always felt in ag that if we didn't grow our own, that we were going to be doomed. That if we didn't inspire young people to enter the education profession as part of the message about the importance of ag education, not just to agriculture, but to the state, that we were doomed. For an industrial technology teacher who's had to look at what some have called the trail of tears as you drive down the valley, all the programs that have been shuttered, there was this kind of feeling of doom that has been permeating career tech for so long, that the kid that wanted to be a teacher looked and said, why would I do that? Because in 5 years, I want to come back to my hometown and teach, and this shop's probably going to be closed. So those are continuing issues. I appreciate the questions that were asked about them, and I hope the dialogue continues for the next few years, because it's not going to get solved in a year. Again, thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Ash. That's the last of our public comment presenter. So before we close, I know Mr. Senator Nelson has a comment to make.
Chairman Leno, thank you for this opportunity to focus on a key area. And I consider today kind of a very significant moment. Last year, I feared that we were going backwards in career tech ed. And clearly this year, we're moving forward. This hearing helps that a great deal. And the last public comments kind of tied it together for me. Mr. Carl talked about the libraries. Well, that's a very big thing and very dear to my heart. And literacy is critically important, and including one of the areas that several of us here, including Mr. Brown, have talked about, that is corrections and correcting. I remember one occasion when instead of putting a parole violator back into prison, I put him into a literacy program, because I realized the reason he became a criminal was he couldn't read. And he got ridiculed, made him mad. People told him he was dumb and he was bad, and he decided he was going to be really dumb and really bad. It came a long ways. In the 50s and the 60s, there was something called the dual track in high school, career track and then the higher ed track. That all got changed as we moved in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and everything became about going to CSU or UC, the universities. I think we're realizing now the importance of that career track at all levels. And the fact that the career track leads to, as well, the higher ed track. They are not separate. They are complementary. The governor's focus here gives us some real opportunities to move ahead. I will acknowledge Mr. Ashwaubenon was speaking about the Ag Incentive Grant, and the success in that was in part a product of a bill the prior year that related to voc ag education, but what it required of voc ag, we imposed it on ourselves, if you will. I'm one of those, if you will. Standards, that ag was going to have standards for their curriculum. And then we would have incentive grants. And now the governor very commendably has extended that incentive grant to the rest of career tech ed. That's going to give career tech ed a boost. This is what will prepare our citizens for the workforce at all levels, not just entry-level jobs, mid-level jobs, all the way to the top of major corporations, businesses, public entities. We've tied it together, Mr. Chairman, today. It's been a very fruitful way to start our budget deliberations. Thanks all of you for participating today and helping move this along.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen, always articulate. We want to thank everyone who participated today, Department of Finance, our Legislative Analyst Office, Department of Education. Thank you for giving us your time, your day, and all of your expertise. This is, of course, the beginning of a conversation, hardly the end, to be continued most specifically in our Budget Subcommittee 1. But as we move through the legislative process, any and all comments are always welcome here at the Committee on Budget and Fiscal Review. We are adjourned.
Very good. Thanks, Mark.